Now we're moving on to mission 3 and 4, which is delivering high-value, safe, nutritious food and the role of research and innovation. And to give the opening address, I'd like to invite Minister Martin Heydon.
Thanks, Helen. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted as Minister of State with special responsibility for research and innovation and new market development to open this panel discussion on delivering high-value, safe, nutritious food and the role of research and innovation, which is effectively missions 3 and 4 of Food Vision 2030. Ireland's agri-food system, including its farmers, its fishers and its food businesses, play a vital role in the daily lives of not only the Irish population, but millions more across the globe. In the 1940s, 1950s and 1960s, Ireland was a very poor country. Opening our economy up and positioning ourselves as a pro-trade nation has been transformative for our country and its people. The agri-food sector has led the charge. Approximately 90% of what we produce is exported, with agri-food exports worth over €15 billion to our economy. This brings money into rural parishes and communities all across the country. To feed and nourish people at home and abroad, the sector has to ensure safe, secure supplies of quality food and drink. Food Vision's Mission 3 is for safe, nutritious and appealing food, trusted and valued at home and abroad. It calls for greater coherence of policies for food, health and nutrition. The pandemic has heightened awareness of this issue, but it is the strength of the Irish agri-food sector that has been producing high-quality nutritious food for many years, underpinned by the work of our farmers. Another strength of the sector is our world-class traceability, food safety, and animal health and welfare. This is the very basis of selling food into markets, and we continue to enhance consumer trust by providing the evidence of safe and ethical food production. Ireland's agri-food sector has a world-leading reputation, and we've heard that mentioned a number of times here this morning. But we should never take that for granted, and we must continue to assess our own performance and evolve to keep up with changing demands and ensure we are future-proofing the sector for the benefit of all who make a living out of it. International consumers seek out Irish food and drink products in what is a very competitive international market. Food Vision recognises the ongoing need to increase the value add in food and drink through insight, product development and differentiation. Meeting demand for food and drink that is fresh, nutrient-rich, tastes good and is sustainably sourced involves providing evidence to demonstrate these attributes. Supporting the food sector and continuing to develop market opportunities at home and abroad is another priority. While the virtual trade missions that we undertook over the course of the pandemic were useful, in-person interactions are invaluable in creating relationships. This year, along with my colleague Minister McConalogue, I've led major agri-food trade missions with Bord Bia and my department officials to North America, the Gulf States, Japan, Singapore and Vietnam, while my colleague Minister Hackett led the first ever organic trade mission to Germany. The shelves and restaurants of these markets may seem far removed from Irish farms, but they are directly interlinked. Developing high-value markets for our products and reaching premium trade customers aligns closely with Food Vision's team of growing export value over volume, and that translates into real money for all involved. As Food Vision notes, arising from Brexit, the UK is likely to continue to open up its market for food through a new set of trade agreements. Food Vision envisages Irish food, agri-food protecting and building on its strong position within the UK market for key food and drink exports, while recognising that the market is likely to become more competitive. The long-term policy of increasing trade diversification will continue. It's the smart thing to do. But the unique importance of the UK market for the Irish agri-food sector will also remain. Building on Ireland's reputation for providing safe, sustainable and high-quality food will be key to maintaining a strong market position in the UK. I now want to turn my attention to the fourth goal of Food Vision, an innovative, competitive and resilient sector driven by technology and talent. As any business owner will tell you, it's people that make the company tick, and the skills and talent of people working in the agri-food sector are absolutely crucial. Innovation is widely recognised as a main driver of long-term sustainable growth, and Food Vision identifies the need for a challenge-focused innovation system to address specific societal issues. This will involve different sectors, actors and regulators working together to find solutions. Agri-food research will provide some of these solutions and increase our capacity to ensure our food system meets the needs of our farmers, the climate, environment, industry, citizens and the many others who participate in it and depend on it. Government support for agri-food and forest research has resulted in it being the 4th largest sectoral area for government research support, accounting for nearly 11% of overall government expenditure on R&D. Through Food Vision, we will continue to build on this strong performance. But this is only part of the innovation system. Ensuring the outputs of that research reach the people who will use it is absolutely critical. Central to this is the development of a dynamic knowledge exchange environment. We have an agricultural knowledge and innovation system that is the envy of many. We will continue to work hard to ensure that advice and research outputs are objective, tailored, and take account of local farming systems and environmental priorities, and embrace new ways of delivering this. Enhancing the use of technology and data will also be crucial to deliver significant transformational potential to the agri-food sector and the bioeconomy. Technological innovation and precision agriculture have the potential to improve the productivity, quality and sustainability of current agri-food systems. In the years ahead, the world will need more food, and we must deliver that with scarcer resources. And as I said at the top of my speech, we cannot close ourselves off from the world and our integrated supply chains. We can lead a transformation of food systems globally instead. Maintaining and improving competitiveness and resilience in the agri-food sector, such as being responsive to market signals and providing supports, ensuring access to finance and reducing operating costs are all key enablers. The attraction and nurturing of diverse talent is a challenge that we cannot afford to underestimate. The nature of many of the roles in the sector is likely to change quite substantially in the period to 2030, as will the career preferences of younger people. We want the best and the brightest in the agri-food sector. Food Vision calls on employers to develop education, attraction and retention strategies, while also proposing measures to deal with labour shortages, reviewing education and training programmes, as well as a series of actions to promote and improve gender balance with a focus on improving diversity and inclusion. I would like to take this opportunity, before I finish, just to thank and congratulate the Stakeholders Committee for developing the Food Vision 2030 strategy. Under the guidance of Tom and all the team, your collaboration together, working from different perspectives, has made this the very, very strong policy document it is, and a very much a living, breathing document as well. It sets out ambitious goals for the decade ahead. Adopting an integrated food systems approach for sustainability in all its forms will not only deliver safe, nutritious and high-value food that tastes great, but it will also deliver significant benefits for the Irish agri-food sector and provide the basis for the future competitive advantage of the sector. Working together, we can deliver on Food Vision and ensure an exciting future for our oldest and most important Indigenous sector. I look forward to hearing the views of the panellists on these topics now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. And now we're moving on to the final panel discussion of today. So I'm going to invite our last group of panellists up to the stage, please. We have Pamela Byrne, who's Chief Executive Officer with the Food Safety Authority of Ireland, Leo Clancy, Chief Executive Officer with Enterprise Ireland, Maeve Henchion, Head of Agri-Food Business and Spatial Analysis with Teagasc, and Sinéad McPhillips, Assistant Secretary General of the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. So I'm going to ask you to sit in the order in which you were called up. So Pamela, if you could sit there, please. Leo, Maeve and Sinéad.
Nice to meet you.
That's great. Thank you very much. As with all the other panel discussions, the same questions to each of the panellists and the same amount of time to each of the panellists. So Pamela, I'm going to come to you first. The Food Safety Authority of Ireland. So what are you doing, or what can you do and will you do to support the implementation of missions 3 and 4, which is delivering high value, safe and nutritious food, as well as the role of research and innovation?
So thanks very much, Helen, and thank you to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I think just first and foremost, it's absolutely fantastic from the Food Safety Authority's point of view that SAFE is a key focus of the food system and the role that this country is going to play in leading out and developing a world-class system around sustainability. FSAI was part of the committee and indeed are also part of the implementation committee that is chaired by the Minister that is going to be working towards implementing, and in fact we're already doing that. The FSEI is a stakeholder across 30 of the actions across 4 of the missions within the strategy, which I suppose speaks to and demonstrates very clearly how important safe food is in the centre of a sustainable food system. We are participating in about 30 actions and we're leading on 1 action. And maybe if I just talk a little bit about the ones that we're participating in at the moment. We're participating, I suppose, along 3 main lines, and it is around evidence, expertise, and providing our experience. So FSEI is an organisation that's been around for 23 years. We have significant amount of expertise and experience in the enforcement of legislation and working in a very dynamic system over those years. One example, I suppose, in relation to 1 action is in respect of food waste. And you might ask, why is the Food Safety Authority involved in an action looking at food waste? It's because much of the discussion now is about how do we recycle that waste, how do we generate the most amount of value from that waste. And indeed, some of that food waste is finding its way into the food system. And of course, we have to make sure that we're raising flags where potential risks associated with that practice might lead to issues that we then have to deal with at a later date when that food is presented to consumers and there perhaps is a contamination in that. So I think being involved in that discussion very early puts up those flags and raises those issues with key stakeholders so that they can take them into account as the policy develops and as the implementation instruments for those policies evolve. Another example is in the area of food packaging. And it might surprise you that there's a significant body of legislation around food contact materials. So every material that comes in contact with food is assessed for its safety through a very, very robust legal framework. And of course, that framework is continuing to evolve as we think about the different materials now that are being utilised in the production of those packaging materials that are used for food. Of course, as those types of materials increase, we're also looking at trying to reduce packaging. And so again, the contribution of the FSEI is around expertise and providing our experience in the enforcement of that legislation and what problems have arisen, but equally, what are the risks we foresee into the future. And on the area of evidence, the FSEI has an independent scientific committee, which is critically important for the authority, but is also a key source of evidence that can be pulled together in order for the authority to assess risks that might be coming into the system or risks that are already in the system and communicating that information to policymakers in order for them to take that into account as they're developing policies in this space. And I suppose also we publish all of that information on our website, so therefore it's freely available to everybody to download. And it is utilised by our partners across Europe and indeed internationally. One of the other areas that we're providing evidence to support policy is in the area of healthy diets. So we do produce the scientific recommendations that underpin then food-based dietary guidelines. And of course, as we heard this morning from our colleague from GAIN, how critical it is that we consider very carefully the nutrition of our population as it grows, both here domestically, because we do have micronutrient deficiencies in the Irish population. So it isn't just a problem in countries outside of Ireland, it is a problem within as well. So those recommendations that our scientific committee develops feed into the development of policy. And I suppose just maybe finally then on the area that we're leading, which is really important, and it's fantastic that FSEI has the opportunity to lead one of the actions in Food Vision 2030, and this is in the area of food reformulation. And so again, we heard this morning about the 5 of 7 risk factors associated with disease in Ireland are diet related. And of course, much of that is down to the food that we eat, or when we eat it, how we eat it. But a lot of the food that is available in Ireland is very healthy, it's very nutritious, and I think we do have a significant role to play in all of that. But I equally think we have a responsibility to work where we can to reduce salt, to reduce fat, and to reduce sugar, and also to reduce calories in high-fat sugar and salt products. And the industry is leading on that, and I have to say, and a good strong call out to the industry for the great work that they've been doing, but there's more to be done. So the FSCI is leading on this. We're fully funded by the Department of Health to lead the National Task Force in partnership with the department. So we have now a fully resourced team that's going to work for 4 years on helping the industry reach those targets that have been set out by 2025. And that gives you a sense of how we're implementing at the moment the various different actions within Food Vision 2030.
And Pamela, you touched on industry and what industry is doing to, I suppose, achieve these missions 3 and 4. But if we look at the wider sector in general, from the perspective of your organisation, what would you like to see done to help implement these 2 goals?
Well, I don't think it'll surprise anybody in this room that the regulator is saying, please comply with the law. It is critically important. We have a strong body of legislation that exists. It is complex, but our job is to demystify that complexity. But it is really important that businesses, farmers and manufacturers and retailers, all actors within the food chain, realise that there's a legal obligation to only put safe food on the market. So it's your obligation to put safe food on the market. It's our job to verify that you do that. And of course, if you don't do that, then we call it out, because we publish our audits on our website. The SANTAF missions and audits that are carried out by the Commission on Ireland are published on their website and indeed are communicated across the world. So it's within all our interests that we do comply very carefully with the law, and that we make sure that we are able to build and continue to maintain that reputation that we have globally around safe food. Maybe just to finally say, I suppose one of the things is we do a lot of engagement with industry, and I would hope that that's recognised. And of course, I do think in delivering on the vision of Food Vision 2030, there is a requirement for greater stakeholder engagement, but also expanding out the stakeholders that we engage with. So not just engaging with the people we normally engage with. There are 3 elements to sustainability: social, economic and environmental. And I think we perhaps need to think more about how do we engage more with the social pillar of sustainability to ensure that we really are all-encompassing and moving on that journey.
Great. Okay, thank you very much, Pamela. And it's not the first time today we heard about the importance of compliance. Leo, I'm going to come to you now from the point of view of Enterprise Ireland. So what can you do, what are you doing to support the implementation of missions 3 and 4?
So firstly, I'd like to welcome the ambition in Food Vision 2030. I think it's great to see a strategy that's focused on export growth. The brand of sustainable food systems is critically important for Ireland, and the focus on innovation, because frankly food is one of the lowest innovation sectors in our economy, and I think there's huge opportunity for us with the heritage we have to do more in that space. I think if you look at where we work, we support in 3 broad areas: existing companies, so helping companies, and traditionally it's been with capital investments. You've seen the CIS for Food, which has been very successfully subscribed in the first phase, and we have a second phase launching soon. So that's the traditional investments that we make. When we did CIS for Food, we actually looked for innovation, and we particularly looked for sustainable capital investments from the industry. And we were really happy to see the response we got, that it's a joint initiative between the Department of Enterprise and the Department of Agriculture and Food. And we got a really strong response from industry in terms of making sure that the new capital investments that were being made in food processing and primary foods were more sustainable, were more innovative, and were leading to new opportunities for Ireland. The second space, so existing companies, I think, have huge opportunity to do more on innovation, and we're seeing signs of that, but we'd like to see more investment. And I think right now is a really good time, because prices in our core commodity products in food are very strong. And that represents a really strong opportunity to build on those by building innovative products that use those substrates into the future. Because if we look at Food Vision 2030, we won't achieve the targets in that on exports on volume alone. It's got to be on value added to product. And that's got to be a big focus, I think, for all food producers in terms of where they show up in the market. That's true of primary food producers and processors alike, I think, in terms of the discriminated value that Irish food has in global markets. The second broad area we help in is systems. So we operate we fund a number of technology centres, including the Dairy Processing Technology Centre, Food for Health, and Meat Technology. And we do that in partnership with stakeholders in the ecosystem. So those are focused very much on adding value to industry and getting engagement from companies, processors, and the ecosystem in building that next sustainable set of food products. And we hope to see more engagement with those. We think it's been positive so far, but we think there's a lot more that can happen. And there's a lot of supports out there for companies. We have an innovation partnership program, for instance, that can provide 65% of the funding for a piece of research that's placed with the university or academic institution in order to get a new idea tested. And if you're a company that hasn't innovated previously and you're thinking, how do I get into it? And the first option probably is not to go out and hire a head of innovation and start charging off on some mission. Actually testing something with the university and saying, God, there's an academic, I don't have to hire them, but with Enterprise Ireland, I can go out and test my idea and get some initial innovation done. That's a really good construct. And the third broad area we help in is startups. We have a target for high potential startups in food. Our target's only 5, actually, so I think it's relatively unambitious out of 85 that we've historically done. We think that there's potential. My colleague Mark Crystal, who runs that team, is in the audience. We think there's potential to drive that on and have much more high potential startups coming through. A good precursor program to that high potential startup is FoodWorks, which is a collaboration with Board BIA and with Teagasc. So we run that jointly as a food ideas accelerator, which should lead to high potential startups and innovative ideas coming through the startup ecosystem. And I think that's the third strand of where we go. I haven't mentioned sustainability, but it's of key importance and it's embedded in this strategy, thankfully. It is going to be vital for this industry in particular that it shows up as a sustainable in every sense of the word, financially sustainable into the long-term future through that value adding to products, but also environmentally sustainable, because I think the world is going to continue to demand sustainability in the products that are delivered from Ireland and from everywhere else. I think if we can get those two aspects right, and the points were made on previous panels, Ireland has a unique opportunity to contribute to the bright future of the world in terms of food sufficiency, because I think the world will be challenged on food sufficiency in coming years. And if Ireland gets its sustainability story right and also is able to increase its production and meet that demand for global nutrition, we have a really compelling proposition, and I'd be really optimistic about hitting the targets in Food Vision 2030.
Leo, so you touched on what Enterprise Ireland are doing, particularly to support the areas of research and innovation and even startups. What would you like to see, or what do you think the role of the wider sector is to support those areas?
I think, well, I mentioned a couple of other actors, so Board BIA, Teagasc, Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine.
And even the third level institutions.
And third level institutions. So we're working with all of those already, and I don't think any of this happens without collaboration. We're probably not working enough with Pamela's organisation, frankly, on food safety and standards. I think there's opportunity for more collaboration across the board, but we are widely networked at the moment. None of the programs we do, like FoodWorks or the technology centres or others, are done alone. They're all done together with partners. And I think that's going to be increasingly important. Okay,
thanks, Leo. Maeve, from Teagasc's point of view then, if we look at delivering high-value, safe, nutritious food, and also the importance, particularly with Teagasc's point of view, of research and innovation, what are you doing at the moment to try and tick those boxes and do what needs to be done to support Mission 3 and 4?
Sure, well, I suppose high-value food is by definition underpinned by our clean green image, and our director already mentioned our climate strategy that's going to be launched at the start of December, and the 3 key components of that. That's our virtual research centre, our signpost demonstration farm and advisory programme linked out from that, and the digital platform. So I think that's kind of one of the key things. But I think along with that, we very much recognise that climate and biodiversity are twin challenges, and there's a lot of work going on in the biodiversity space. I suppose that's symbolically very important. So for example, our agricultural colleges, they all have a biodiversity plan. We've planted hedgerows, we have initiated Hedgerow Week. So I think there's a lot of things that are symbolically very important. And even, I suppose, down in Moore Park, we planted hedgerows there, and we planted them in a very obvious space so that people can see, Teagasc is planting hedgerows. Why are they doing that? It might open up a discussion. So there's a lot of symbolically very important things going on in that space. And I suppose what we're doing internally, we're bringing key concepts into the organisation that can help us to deliver on this food systems thinking. So we mentioned circular bioeconomy already this morning. So we are, at the moment, we had a number of high-level meetings within Teagasc over the last couple of months so that we can contribute to the Bioeconomy Action Plan that has to become before government before the end of the year. We've established a bioeconomy working group within the organisation that covers research, the research directors, the knowledge transfer directors and the operations directorate to make sure we have a whole of organisation approach to working on these initiatives. We've embraced concepts like One Health. Obviously we know antimicrobial resistance is an issue for humans that has I suppose, linked through to practice at farm level. We've had a very successful programme that was led by my colleague Anya Regan, that was funded by the Department of Agriculture, Food, Marine and Safe Food, linked in with Animal Health Ireland. And one of the outcomes of that is a training programme for vets and advisors that is about motivational interviewing and working with farmers to help them to work through the issue of antimicrobial resistance and the practices that they can put in place to help to reduce those inputs. So there's a lot of work going on in that space. And I suppose we very much recognise that we have a leadership role in this space as well. We had an event co-hosted with the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine involving Tom Arnold and other international experts to help with that social learning process with regard to what food systems mean for us within the research and innovation community. And I suppose another thing that we're doing is we've talked about integrated livestock a bit this morning, but there was a big bit of work done by Perrault and MacLeod. Perrault is from INRAE in France and MacLeod is from the Scottish Agricultural College in Scotland, and they did a big piece of work for the European Commission around sustainable livestock, and one of their key conclusions is that we need to link plant and animal production much more closely to have that sustainable system. And we have quite a number of projects now starting off within Teagasc that are all about plant-based production, and obviously that links in with the diversified diets and the kind of the issue around legumes and that kind of area as well. So one project that has kicked off recently that's led by Teagasc, that's funded by the European Commission, is called Valpro Path, and within that we're going to be looking at peas, beans and lentils, looking at it in terms of agronomics, looking at it in terms of how we can develop transformation pathways at a European level and at a national level, and tying it in with nutrition and just trying to do the whole thing around that as well. And I suppose another thing we very much recognise that innovation isn't just a technological process, it's very much a socio-technical process. And the Signpost programme, we're using that as a living lab. So it's not just though about putting technologies in place and looking at how does it improve biodiversity, how does it impact on emissions. It's also trying to look at how can we develop our ACIS, our agricultural knowledge and innovation system, from learning from the Signpost programme. How can we use farmers as social influencers? How can we use other innovation brokers to help to spread the message of the Signpost programme? And I suppose things I've been reflecting on myself with regards to how we go about this. I think if we're trying to think about food systems thinking, we are thinking about much bigger research projects and bigger research centres. We're thinking about, Valpro Path that I mentioned, that's about 12 million. We're thinking about, SFI centres like Vista Milk and Biorbic. We're thinking about Protein I, a 5 million project that's funded by DAFM. But all of those projects require what are at least a project manager or an operations team to help deliver on them. These are very big kind of initiatives that require coordination. And we probably need to think about research pathways for non-academics within that context. So we have people in TTOs, we have project managers, we have education and public engagement managers and officers as well. So how can we develop career pathways for those people? If we're trying to have a food systems thinking, we need our research structure, our research funding, and how we do that needs to reflect that, and then we need to have the people within that who can then follow through and have a career path around that. And following from that, then we need to think about our reward systems for our researchers. So peer-reviewed publications, that's great if you're in a very deep disciplinary perspective, and we absolutely do need to maintain our high science. But if you want to have all that kind of inter- and transdisciplinary engagement, you have to incentivise the time that people will take to get to know each other and to learn each other's languages, and that has to be incentivised maybe as well.
You've touched on that already, Maeve, in your answer, is the importance of kind of collaboration and cross-pollination between all the sectors. And is there enough being done, or what would you like to see done to make sure all these different bodies work together, because they're all working towards the same aim?
Well, I suppose, Food Vision in itself started off from that basis. And I think, even our own Signpost programme, whereby we have 100 odd farmers, but we have 50 other actors kind of involved, I think is a great example of the great goodwill that's there. But I suppose an actor that seems to be missing from this whole debate is the retailer. And we talked about the need for market incentives, and the retailer obviously is a key conduit to getting market signals back to farmers. But I think another thing that we need to do is try to figure out where is the market bit and where is the policy bit in terms of incentivising farmers. And something that I'm keen on myself in trying to figure out is if we have consumers at one end, consumers stroke citizens at one end trying to requiring certain practices, and we farmers at the other end who are being asked to implement these practices, we often have an unfunded mandate in the middle. So we need to figure out, is that going to be, but how can that be funded? And that's the bit we have to figure out. Should that be coming from the market or should it be coming from policy? And there's a bit of work to be done to figure out the consumer citizen perspective and if there's a distinction there and how does that marry with the primary producer, and a little bit of social learning kind of required between the two of those to have a better understanding of what's feasible and practical and what can come from the market and what can come from the policy incentive side.
Okay, thank you very much, Maeve. Sinead, from the department's point of view then, if we look particularly at research and innovation, as Maeve touched on, and also then from the point of view of food, nutrition, providing nutritious, safe food, what's been done to implement those missions?
I suppose the department has a broad role, Helen, in relation to missions 3 and 4. Just to pick out some specifics, both Tom Arnold and Lawrence Haddad and indeed Pamela referenced the importance of food, health and nutrition. And I suppose the department has always interacted very strongly with the Food Safety Authority of Ireland as another competent authority and with the Department of Health on a range of issues, food safety, the Healthy Ireland programme and food information for the consumer. But the strategy calls out the need for a high-level group to drive that engagement and to ensure coherence between food, health and nutrition. And that's something we are very keen to progress. Now, obviously, the Department of Health has had other priorities recently in keeping us all safe from COVID, but I think that's really essential to bring that cooperation and coherence to a new level. In relation to research, which Maeve has explained very well, I think where the department is moving to, along with other partners, is to that challenge-focused approach, so that we're very keen that researchers aren't staying within their own area of expertise, but that they're communicating and collaborating effectively. So, and addressing the key challenges that we face. So, for example, in the latest round of department research funding, 60% of funding went to climate projects, because that is, I suppose, our overriding burning platform where we need to act. Just to pick a few other issues, Minister Heydon referenced the fact that in relation to new markets outside of Europe, we're very pleased to be getting back to in-person ministerial-led trade missions, and that's really important in cooperation with Borbia and particularly with the local embassies involved, because 1/3 of our export value now comes from those international markets. And in parallel with that ministerial-facing engagement and high-level trade promotion, my colleagues in the department are also doing very detailed technical work on market access. So getting and improving market access for our meat and dairy products to new markets. And that could involve technical missions, it can involve inward visits, inspection visits, and interacting on a very detailed basis with those competent authorities on an ongoing basis to ensure that we have the opportunity to move into those new markets.
So if we look at the opportunity of new markets and also, I suppose, the importance of, as you were saying, communication and collaboration between different research groups, how can the wider sector help with that? I mean, what can other bodies do to make everything work more seamlessly?
I think one important part is demystifying. So Maeve referenced the event that she organised earlier in the year on research cooperation, so that people don't feel put off, I suppose, by engaging in talking about research because it's all very technical. I know that those of us who've been involved under Jerry and Thea's guidance in the food vision, dairy and beef and sheep groups, we've had real practical learnings about what counts, what doesn't count in terms of the climate inventory. And I think that's been really helpful. Although difficult, it's been really helpful to actually understand the science behind it. And that helps to bring people along.
Actually, a question has come in through Slido that I might put to you, actually, that in terms of food vision delivery, when will a performance review be published?
I suppose we have a strong implementation process for food vision. So we have a high-level implementation committee that's chaired by Minister McConalogue, and that's meeting on a quarterly basis. And that is really a forum for all of us who have the lead on the various actions to account for our performance and to address blockages and to exchange information. But there will also be an annual report produced on implementation that will look at the actions and progress on those actions, and it will also incorporate a report from the Environmental Working Group on looking at the indicators that have been identified on environmental performance.
Okay. Another question has come in, Pamela, and I might put it to you, that how important is food safety in sustainable food systems?
I think it's, and it won't surprise you to say it is at the core, because if, whether it's sustainably produced food or not, if it's not safe, it's not food. I think this has to be recognised, and even in the context of market access is only enabled through having robust systems of food control within Ireland. And we do have good systems of control. We do have a fantastic inspectors who are highly skilled and doing very, very important jobs. We have a strong laboratory infrastructure, and we have strong collaboration within that system. But of course, every system needs to be continuously reviewed and evaluated and monitored to determine whether or not it can improve. And I think we need to improve, because I think sustainability is going to bring another dimension to the control system that we have in place and how that's going to evolve. The European Commission are currently taking soundings in relation to how do we capture the concept of sustainability within the labelling of food products, for example, so that we don't end up in a situation where consumers are being misled by information that's put on a label. And so there's lots of engagement going on at the European Commission level, and we are in Ireland engaging that. And of course, I think it speaks to the heart of some of the comments of others and that focus on collaboration. If you look at Food Vision 2030 and you look at the implementation plan, it cannot be achieved by one organisation working on its own. And you will see multiple stakeholders against the multiple actions that are in there. I think what's going to be the challenge for us is how do we, with the consistent change that's going on at the moment, continue to drive through on that collaboration and really build those partnerships that we'll have to sustain over time as we as a system get our heads around we're moving towards that goal that we have around being a world leader in sustainable food systems. So I have to say, and I think it's absolutely important that we really do commit to food safety. We have strong standards of food safety in this country and across Europe, but we can't become complacent, because the minute we take our eye off the ball, that's the time when we lose access to markets. It's the time when we start to increase the level of risk that consumers are exposed to. But I do think that there is a way in which we can, through Food Vision, really strengthen our systems of control and use those as a key element of how do we move forward in sustainable food systems into the future.
Great. Thanks, Pamela. A general question for the panel now, and I might come to you with it first, Maeve. We've touched on it already, but I think it's worth talking about it a little bit more, that how can research and innovation assist in overcoming the sustainability challenge? Because, particularly if we look at the targets that are set for 2030, and as we heard earlier on, that the existing technology alone won't be enough to meet those targets. So it's vitally important that it continues, isn't it?
Absolutely, and as you know, with regards to climate, Teagasc does have kind of a roadmap over a short, medium and long term, and research and innovation across a whole heap of dimensions is intrinsic to that. But I suppose a point that I didn't really get to make, and it was just kind of at the end with regards to how we do research and how we can collaborate with industry, and it's tied in with the point you were making about kind of the link between science and practice as well. I think as we're doing our research, we very much need to embrace what's called the multi-actor approach at EU level, and this co-design approach as well. So as we are doing research, that we very much need to link with industry and other practitioners in terms of figuring out the way forward. So science can bring us quite a bit of the way, but people need to come with us on the way and need to help us to define that pathway on the way as well.
Right, Pamela, you want to come in on that?
Yeah, and just to build on that, we talk about the connection between academia and industry and the translation of research into practice. I think it's important also for regulatory organisations like the Food Safety Authority to have access to really high quality research. And that's one of the things we have here in Ireland, and I think we need to continue to invest in that. I also think we need to understand that a huge amount of public policy is informed by a strong evidence base. That evidence base needs to be available to policymakers and ultimately also to regulators like ourselves, because we need to understand the innovation in order for us to influence the direction of travel of legislation into the future, so that legislation becomes an enabler of innovation rather than what it's perceived as is a constrainer of innovation. And I think as an industry, we have a highly innovative industry in this country. It's producing food that's been exported all over the world. It's a wonderful story. But we have an awful lot more opportunity if we start to think about what are the innovations that industry are dealing with, are using at the moment, those new technologies. How do those new technologies fit into the current legal framework? But equally, how can the legal framework evolve to enable that technology and that innovation to really deliver products that are safe, that are nutritious, and they're absolutely in the expectations of consumers today. They have very high expectations, and I do believe that we collectively have the opportunity to meet those expectations.
Leo, I might come to you on that about the importance of research and innovation to meet the sustainability challenge, because in order to stay viable, really businesses have to be able to meet the sustainability challenge, don't they?
Yeah, they must. I mean, we're running in parallel with this conference, the International Markets Week, which is where we connect our clients with our teams all around the world. And it's specifically not food, because that's Board B's responsibility in terms of food marketing, so it's all the other sectors. But actually what I said to the audience yesterday is, if you don't have a verifiably sustainable product, and this is all sectors except food, it was the audience yesterday, you'll be out of your markets. It's just a matter of time. You won't be, and verifiably sustainable, so it needs to stand up to the highest levels of international scrutiny in the next 10 years, which are going up year by year. I think research and innovation has a huge part to play in this, but I think we can't wait. Like one of the concerns I have about probably the dialogue on the panel a little bit is that we might almost prompt industry to wait for a top-down strategy in order to start innovating. And I think that's a real moral hazard, actually, from a government top-down strategy, that we would cause that reaction. I see one of the questions on Slido is how do we source adequate technology? Do you think we should hold open calls and incubators to source and nurture new startups? A food tech hub, those exist. We funded food tech hubs, Fiery's Food Hub, BA Innovator in Galway. We've funded FoodWorks. They're there. We have a HBSU program for food. It's there. We need to get people engaging with it. I think the more we talk about food vision as planning to activate things with high-level top-down groups, the more we surrender opportunity that should be realized by 2030 in sustainability and in all other aspects of innovation. Innovators who are getting up and doing things with technology are winning in their markets. Pearson's was the winner of our innovation arena this year at the Ploughing Championships. They took artificial intelligence and they applied it to body condition scoring within milking parlours, ticking a couple of boxes: productivity, so increasing milk yield levels, but also increasing the animal welfare assurance that they can give around, that farmers can give around their herds. And I think that kind of innovation is absolutely win-win. I met a woman the other night who's taking overripe bananas and recycling them into bags of banana snacks with vegan technology. And again, it's a different end of the spectrum. She didn't wait for a top-down strategy around vegan products. With Board B's support and with others, she got on and produced a product, and she's looking to take it to the next level and look at different substrates for her product. So if I would send one message today, it's don't wait for us to give you top-down strategies. The infrastructure is there. The ability to get these things done is there. The Pearsons work closely with Technology University of Dublin in doing their research. So even though they didn't have the AI expertise in-house, they went out, sourced it from the university, brought it into their company, added their new product to a milking machine, and they're driving on.
Great. You wanted to come in there, Sinead?
I suppose just to carry on Leo's theme of not waiting for a top-down strategy, I think the actions about attracting and nurturing diverse and inclusive talent, that's something that the sector at farm level and at industry level can do for themselves. I think it's really important. It's not just about gender balance anymore. It's equality, diversity and inclusion. That's what our young people expect in any walk of life, and that's what we need to deliver in order to attract them to the sector. So I think there is a lot more that the food industry and the farm organisations can do to sell that message that there is a good life with challenges in farming and in food, and it's open to everyone and everyone is welcome into it. So I know Thomas earlier mentioned the challenges for young farmers and fully acknowledging those, but I mean there are significant attractions for young people in the sector. And just to mention, we have a youth delegation, including actually Thomas Duffy, going to the FAO World Youth Forum in Rome next week to exchange ideas with young people from around the world on solving these big climate challenges. So I think there's really good examples there of how people can be included in the sector.
Absolutely, and if we do talk about engaging with the younger generation, Ireland is also, as well as a world leader in the area of ag-food, in the area of tech and data. So it's vitally important, I'd imagine, to engage with the younger generation of people, whether they're working in the areas of data and technology, that's a huge amount of expertise at our fingertips. And are we doing enough to tap into it?
Yes, and many of those people come from farm families. So if we look around the table in the farmhouse, there's a variety of skills and talents that can really contribute to that business in the family. Okay, well, I'd like to thank all of our panel for joining us. I think the one thing that definitely comes out of this discussion is, I suppose, the importance of communication and collaboration and tapping into the expertise that is already there. But I would like to thank our panel, Pamela, Leo, Maeve and Sinead. Thank you very much.